have a shout out show where I talk to you. And it's not a jingle. Why am I trying to sing a jingle? I got no jingle. We're talking about reaction videos. We're talking about new subscribers. We're talking about a lot of things. So let's jump into it. So this is the shout out show. Let me explain to you how the shout out show works, shall we? So shout out show is if you are a new subscriber, or if you are a follower on any of the social platforms or anything, and I saw your name pop up, I'm going to shout you out. I'm going to say thank you for the follow. I'm going to say thank you for the subscribe. I'm going to say thank you for anything I can see that you have followed me on. The caveat there being that I can see that you have followed me on it. So if you're on one of the platforms that I don't check very often, which sadly is Facebook, Instagram, and anything not really Twitter or YouTube related these days, then I'll shout you out as soon as I see you. But again, I don't check those super frequently, so I'm getting better about it, but you know, it is what it is. Also, Twitter's kind of going crazy, so maybe that's going to change in the very near future. And then Rumble. I do actually check the Rumble fairly frequently, but I have no way of checking to see who is following on Rumble. So the only way to make yourself visible in those cases, especially over on YouTube, you can set yourself to private, and then all I can see is that somebody followed me, but it doesn't tell me who. So if those are the cases, you want to join the conversation, I do encourage that, actually. And the only way to do that is to join in the comment section. Make a comment, say, hey, yo, a new subscriber, thanks for making videos, or you should talk about this next time. And then I'll, address you directly. That being said, that is kind of all the caveats. That is the way things work around here. So let's get into it, because we have a lot of viewer mail this time around. So first up, we do have one subscriber over on the second YouTube channel, the Nerd News Clips channel, and that is the Billy Bob 2118. Thank you very much, Nerd, for the follow. I hope you appreciate the conversation and maybe join in the not too distant future. That's what we have for follows. Thank you very much, Nerds. Let's get into now the viewer mail portion. Viewer mail was primarily from reaction videos that went live over the course of the last week. So viewer mail, we're going to start things off with the big one, and that is the King Gizzard reaction. The name of the song was Dragon. The name of the band is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Dug it. It was a long track, but I dug it. Keep that in mind, because some of these comments apparently didn't watch all the way through or really pay attention to the things I was saying. So starting at the top, we have EZG commenting, and EZG says, you can definitely hear Stu's voice get raspy after doing these vocals live. The 2019 KEXP post-performance interview sounded painful. And even the recent Highway Holidays TV Gaia performance had a hint of that too. Really hope with the rise of the throat singing on this album that he shifts to a more sustainable technique. I definitely agree. There is a reason why extreme forms of music previous to modern extreme forms of music did not kind of reserved those kind of crazy screamy vocals for like few and far between parts, because they didn't have the technique. We hadn't studied the voice as well as we have in modern times. So back in like the 70s and when Motorhead was a thing, I mean, I think Lemmy just kind of destroyed his voice with cigars and whiskey, but like people in that kind of vein of vocal, or you look at King Diamond and he's doing the very operatic almost screams and squeals and that kind of stuff. It wasn't until like the 80s and like really when death metal started to kind of really blow up, late 70s, early 80s, that you really got into this. And even then, those vocalists' careers, you take a look at, I can't think of his name right now, the original lead singer of Cannibal Corpse, and you hear him sing now versus when he was in Cannibal Corpse, and it's like two different people because he's destroyed his vocals. So yeah, I think that there's a long way of saying that there is a proper way to do this. The dudes in King Gizzard are highly intelligent, so if they plan on doing this more or continuing to do this for an extended period of time, this record specifically, I feel like Stu, I'm assuming, is the vocalist in this song, primary vocalist, we'll get to that in a minute, that he would look into proper ways of attaining that tone so that he doesn't blow out his voice and then he can't sing their entire back catalog just because he sounds like a completely different person. So yeah, that's kind of, I agree with you, and that's a little bit of a history lesson, though again, we're going to get into that. From there, our next one comes from Comrade Question. Comrade Question says, 26 minutes, bass player is dressed up as Lemmy, LOL. They definitely intended for a loving, campy style with this video. Yeah, 100%. I feel like I started questioning that at the beginning, and then by the end of the video, I had acquiesced to, yeah, they're intelligent dudes. They know this style fairly well. This is, how did you put it? Campy style, loving campy style. Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's in the vein of the 70s, like early days of metal. Like, yeah, that's exactly what they were going for, and kind of a campy take on it. 100% agree. From there we have, all right, here we go. Now we're getting into the colorful comments. Aiden Litson says, please don't play the guitar, cry laughy face. All right, so this is the only one of these comments. There were, I think, 2 other comments that were basically this same thing. So I'm just going to address you all at once. No, I'm not going to stop. This is not going to be while not as well during the King Gizzard video, I will admit, but generally when I do reaction videos, the guitar kind of helps me iterate, kind of helps me display, that's not the word I'm looking for. The guitar helps me show my point, to illustrate my point. That's what I was trying to say. The guitar helps me illustrate what I'm trying to say better. So watch some of the other ones where it's, I do it with the bass too. It is kind of a thing, and I don't know, maybe I left this one in here, so yeah, we'll get to the polyrhythms comment in just a moment. But yeah, I'm not going to stop playing the guitar with it. That's part of the intro. Pay attention, please, children. From there, where are we going next? Barber Jinx is our next comment. Barbar says, they have a sense of humor about themselves and their work. What you call amateurish, some would call tongue-in-cheek. Plus, they make cool sounds and they are open to trying everything. That's why they've become successful. I feel like you're almost to the point on a couple of those things, but you're just off just a little bit. Amateurish and tongue-in-cheek would not be ways you would describe similar things. Or even necessarily opposite things. They don't really mesh. Amateurish is how I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, is how I described the vocal performance of this song. And we've kind of previously talked about that just a moment ago. So I think that it's a lack of experience in the genre specifically. It's not a lack of exposure to the genre, because obviously they know the genre well enough to do what they did. And they've done this previously. This is not their first metal record. But they put out, like I said in the video, they put out like 2 to 3 albums a year, sometimes 2 to 3 albums a month. So that kind of prolific output, if it's not all in the same genre, kind of makes you the old adage of jack of all trades, master of none. That's kind of the territory they get into. Granted, it's not an accurate description 100%, because they definitely are masters of prog rock, because they do that extremely well. But the metal side of things, they're a little less experienced and therefore amateurish. Tongue-in-cheek would be an implication of their sense of humor or the lyrical content, and I don't think that's exactly an accurate description of the lyrical content. Maybe the humor and the fact that one of the members in the video dresses up like Lemmy and just kind of does shit like that. Yeah, that makes sense. But as far as like the lyrical content, this album has a legit theme to it. This is, I would borderline say it's a theme record, a concept album, if you will, but not 100%. But I haven't listened to it fully, so maybe it is, and I'm just going by rote. But yeah, and then the other thing that you said in here was, where did it go? They're open to trying everything. That's why they've become successful, and they make cool sounds. Yes, they do make cool sounds. I am a bit of a fan. I appreciate what they do. They are open to doing just about everything, and that's also why I appreciate them, but that's not, I don't know if that would be specifically why they're successful. I think the fact that they're ridiculously talented is specifically why they're successful, but either way, we're mostly in agreement, so there we go. Next comment comes from Hector Chainlock, and Hector says, bleed effect part is a different person singing BTW in Latin. And I'm pretty sure whatever they do, they are aware of it and do it intentionally. I think I'm going to just repeat myself a couple of times. I'm aware of this. I'm not really aware of the Latin part. The mixing on there made it sound like they might be singing in English, but it also made it sound like they might be singing in a different language. So that's cool. I thank you for the clarification. And I really dig the bleeding part. And as far as the rest of that, yeah, sure. Let's move on. From there, we have Tom Paul. Tom Paul says, I believe it's in drop B. I believe the same thing, Tom Paul. I think... I might not have said it in the video, though, but I did figure out, because I was starting to figure out the riff, I did figure out that the fingering that they were doing in the video and the fingering that I was doing on my guitar was basically the same, which means we're probably in the same tuning. So I tuned to drop B. That's very likely what they were tuned to, because that was making it very easy on me to figure out that riff. I gave up after recording the video, but I was getting close inside of the time it took to record the video. So our next one comes from Miles Tippett. Miles says, actually, the bass tone is usually a Mustang bass with flats. Very unmetal. Alright, so I really dislike this, metal, you have to do this very specific thing, and that's how you metal, and, no. So I knew for a while, when I was fresh out of high school doing the metal band, every weekend we were playing a different venue, that kind of, working very hard in the metal band. We had a sister band that was probably not as heavy, so they got a little bit higher profile stuff, because the scene that we were in at the time didn't really dig the exceptionally heavy stuff, just kind of safely heavy. Anyway, we were friends with these guys, and their bass player played a Fender J bass. And I think he was actually the one who got me turned on to flat wound strings. That could have been my jazz teacher, I don't remember. But one of those two guys got me turned on to flat wound strings. So I personally play flat wound strings in any musical venture that I do, specifically the metal stuff, because when you're moving that fast with your left hand, it kind of cuts back on the bleeding. Saying specifically that you have to play through this instrument, or you have to play with these kind of strings, or you have to in order to make metal, I feel like those people need to watch older Jared Dines videos, or Rob Scallon videos, where they make metal, or even SMG Productions. I can't remember what that dude's name is off the top of my head right now. But they all go through, like, yes, it is 100% possible to play a genre of music on a guitar. It does not matter what genre or what make of guitar you're playing. You can pretty much do anything on anything. Does the specific sound generally, is it generally more accepted by players in a certain genre? Sure. But that's kind of genre, you can do whatever you want. It's your music. I don't, the pigeonholing yourself because of the type of instrument you play is silly. Anyway. or because of the type of strings you put on your instrument. It's just even more silly. But yes, I do appreciate the Mustang bass tone. The dude in King Gizzard, sorry. The dude in King Gizzard has exceptional tone, and I was super jealous when listening to that. And he knows how to do it, man. No rock bass syndrome. Totally loved it. All right, our next one comes from... checking batteries. Sorry. Next one comes from Zedge0116. And Zedge says, honestly, having watched Stu's vocal journey and confidence grow throughout King Giz's career, I feel like he's really found his own in many vocal areas. Especially on this album with the raspy and low throat singing effects. This is one of the first albums where I was more impressed with Stu's voice more than Ambrose, who still sounds amazing, by the way. I just love Stu's cadence as always, and his tone on this album just works for me. And I think he's not trying to do a traditional growl or metal yelling or screaming. He's just singing as he would, but with some grungy aggression on certain points on the album. I'm going to preface this by saying you are probably a much more well-versed fan of King Gizzard than I. I'm going to say that. I am also going to preface this by saying an outsider's point of view, an outsider who works in this genre fairly extensively, I wouldn't say exclusively, but extensively, and also an outsider who produces, and not only do I write in this, but I produce a lot of this kind of stuff. I don't think, how can I put this delicately? Whatever. I don't think that Stu's voice is... I know that is not his regular voice, all right? So I know he's therefore affecting a more quote-unquote metal vocal tone. He's going more in the lines of a Lemmy or Devin Townsend early in his career kind of sound, where it's not... It's more of a vocal fry rather than compression kind of thing, which is very much more done in the... To say it's done in the throat would kind of be an inaccurate way of describing it, but that's kind of the sound, almost. There's many more vocal coaches who can go into better detail for this, but by and large, it's a vocal fry instead of a vocal compression. And I think that's very much on purpose. I'm not saying that he doesn't know how to do anything else. I think that was the sound that they decided to go for. I think he probably could have done a little bit more research and study of his vocal instrument in order to get there in a more healthy way. But he's the one making the music, so it's on him to do his art the way he wants to do his art. So I can't really make that statement, make that judgment anyway. And I don't think it's at just certain points in the record. Again, have not listened to the entire record at this point in time, but I'm pretty sure this is the vocal affectation he's going with for the metal sound they want for this record. I don't think it's a just this song kind of thing, or just this and maybe a couple other songs. I'm pretty sure it's the whole record where he's doing this. This is the vocal affectation he has chosen. In which case he'll fall into it. I feel like a lot of people who are intelligent and who listen to their bodies, that's how this technique was born effectively. So it's not unheard of for vocalists who don't know how to do it to eventually figure it out on their own. Totally within the wheelhouse possibilities. So yeah, we're just kind of gonna leave that one there. We're talking in circles about Stu's voice. From there, our next one comes from Bob Manna. Bob says, "This guy is what happens when you can't enjoy music anymore. Analyzing everything and incapable of getting into a quote groove unquote. I guess the human element of music, Like no shit. KGLW's vocals aren't their strong point. It's their melodies, their dynamism, polyrhythms, chemistry with each other, Cavs plus Ambrose plus Stu plus everyone. Overall, just being a prolific band that can adapt to any sound. Okay, so I've said this again. I prefaced this in the video, I believe. I prefaced it with this section of this video. I'm gonna say this again. I liked that song. I like King Gizzard. I think they are incredibly talented. I think they are ridiculously prolific. I think these guys could teach a lot of other bands what a pocket is when it comes to groove. I think that the fact that you think I'm not appreciating the groove means you didn't watch through even to the halfway point, because there is a really groovy middle section in that song that I really got into. So yeah, and at what point do I not enjoy this music? Like, the whole purpose is to have a conversation about why it's good or why it's not. And pretty much the whole way through, save for some vocal elements that I feel like he could improve on, I was saying how great this song was in literally every possible way. The production is fantastic. The performance is fantastic. The bass player knows what the hell he's doing on the bottom end. Just everything about this song really worked. And even by the end, I warmed up to those vocals as well. Even though I still think that he could, go through a couple of vocal courses with maybe Melissa Cross or something. But like, great stuff all over. Like, this is such a misinformed comment. I just can't even, I don't know where to begin with you. And in that note, I think we have we have two more. Both of them kind of negative comments, but it is what it is. Like I said, this is the nature of viewer mail, right? So the next one comes from Stir Fry. Great name. Stir Fry says, "Bro is trying to analyze and play along with polyrhythms he can't keep up with." Oh boy. All right. So here's the thing about polyrhythms. When they're done well, they don't feel like polyrhythms. The polyrhythms in the King Gizzard song, in almost any King Gizzard song, I haven't listened to their entire back catalog, so I can't say to any, but the music of theirs that I have listened to that does contain polyrhythms all feels very natural, means it's very groovy, means it should be fairly easy to pick up as long as you can pick up the riff that they're playing. I don't know how much guitar you play, but from where I was standing, like, the fact that I could get into the groove enough to kind of figure out the riff after only having heard it for that one time through the song. I only have listened, well, at the point of recording that, I had only listened to that song that time. I don't do pre-listens to music. I don't do fake reactions. I do legitimate live blind reactions when I do a reaction video. So the fact that I could figure out as much as I figured out inside of 10 minutes says a lot about their musicianship and a lot about the ability for that song to groove. The polyrhythms are almost irrelevant at that point. I would honestly have to go back to try and pick out what exactly you're hearing as polyrhythms, because if you're specifically hearing them as polyrhythms, either you're hearing them incorrectly, or you're very much just counting the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, and at that point, like, are you really enjoying the song, or have you listened to it so much that is the next level of enjoyment? I don't know how you digest your music, but it just seems like you don't understand that was the first time I had ever heard that song, and so I can't keep up. Like, whatever, bro. Sure, I'm an idiot. I don't know how to play my instrument. That's fine. Go on, and whatever gets through the night. Our last one for this video comes from Northside Productions. Northside, N-O-R-F, by the way, Northside says, quote, "In aggressive music, bass is usually given overdrive," unquote. Glad I got that tip in. I would have never known. All right, sarcasm duly noted. Let's do this. Most people who are familiar with a specific genre that maybe isn't metal probably wouldn't assume as much. Or you could make the point that a lot of bands, a lot of metal bands, don't use overdrive necessarily because for whatever personal reasons. So when I said that a lot of times overdrive is used in bass, it was because I was then going to make the point that the bass player for King Gizzard was not using overdrive. Instead, he was playing with a pick, which has a similar effect, and so it was to illustrate a point. So cherry picking a setup for a point seems really like a dick move, but you know, maybe that's just me. But that's what we got for that video. We do have one other reaction comment for one other reaction video that went up over the course of the last week or so. It is the Knocked Loose reaction video for the two singles that they just put out together, the single video for the two singles. This one comes from Matrophagy 13, and Matrophagy says, "You can clearly see his shadow also in that scene. Don't you think if they were trying to suggest he was the straw mask, they would have edited his out? That's dumb." No, I don't think they would have spent the extra couple of $1,000s or whatever it probably would have taken. I think they would have tried their best to do it in camera, and that's kind of what, why else would they be holding the, like, yes, obviously you can see the shadow that the pole is making that is holding the straw mask. And yes, you can still kind of see his regular shadow as well. But I think the effect that they were going, and the only way we'll ever know is if somebody asks the band or the director specifically, and let me know when you read that in an interview. But it looks like the interpretation of the video, because it's art, the interpretation that I got from that video is that they were trying to say he was turning into one of the straw heads. And by the end of the video, that's exactly what happened. So, I don't know, I feel like my interpretation's a little closer to the intent of the artist than yours, but again, it's art, so it's open for interpretation. I could be wrong, and I'm going to leave that door open. But let's go back and forth on that one. That's what we got, though, nerds. Thank you for joining me for this shout-out show, viewer mail, all of the things. If you want to join, you know how to do it. Join in the conversation in the comments section, and you'll get your own shout-out, and you'll become part of the show. You can also contribute to the news. Like, if you have a story for the news show, by all means, drop that in the comments section as well. Or we'll just keep talking about music production stuff and I'll just keep making these videos. Either way, appreciate you, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here, and I'm gonna shout you out.